All right, 2 Samuel chapter 12, verses 7 to 8. Some difficult questions, all right? Now let's read together. And Nathan said to David, Thou art the man. Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I anointed thee king over Israel, and delivered thee out of the hand of Saul. And I gave thee thy master's house, and thy master's wives into thy bosom, and gave thee the house of Israel of Judah. And if that had been too little, I would moreover have given unto thee such and such things. May God bless the reading of His word. Now here we have the case of so the person's question, all right? Now, so we read here, God says that I have given to you your master's wife, which will be Saul, King Saul. So King Saul's wives were given to David. Now, isn't this, all right, so the question is this. Was it wrong of Nathan to bestow Saul's wives upon David as his rightful inheritance after Saul's death? Now, so Saul, King Saul is David's father-in-law, correct? And then here Nathan says, well, God says that He have given you all of King Saul's wives. So the question is this. Now, wouldn't this be encouraging David to commit polygamy? Polygamy means having multiple wives. So is Nathan encouraging David to commit polygamy? So, right? So these are some a difficult question, but there are actually very simple answers to them. All right, historically. Now, first and foremost, we know for clarity, we always use the clear to interpret the less clear, correct? That it is clear that God is against polygamy. We've studied that many times in Teens Q&A. So that is established. And God says from the beginning, God already said right from the beginning, God's intention is for men to have one wife. That's it. Now, so polygamy is definitely forbidden by God and commanded against. So what is happening here? Then we have to interpret it based on that. God definitely is not saying, neither is God's prophet saying, well, I give you many wives. What else do you want? They're all yours. After King Saul's death. Now, in those days, historically in those days, when a king succeeds or conquers another king, all right, to show that this transition, to show that this new king has taken complete control and power and authority over the area or the country, one of the things that is important that is done is to show that this new king takes over everything that the previous king has, and that includes his concubines, his harem of wives. So that is something that in those days is a proof and a stamp to say that now this person has completely, legally and regally, there's a difference. Legally means legal, by law. Regally means by kingship, royalty, has now totally succeeded the other king. Okay? So we know that there is something that is known at that time. So then, knowing that God forbids polygamy, but yet this thing happened, and historically it has been furnished that David, whether in the Bible or in extra biblical information, David did not take them to become his wives. It's just now this harem is also under my control. They are no longer belonging to the previous king, who is dead anyway. They are under my authority. Alright? So they cannot say, now I want to marry another man. Now that can cause a lot of problems. Alright? That can become a challenge to the kingship. Alright, so if someone wants to marry one of these wives that he has taken over, it will be a challenge to the king. That is what's happening. So it's to say now, when I take over the kingship, all this, even their wives, is under my power. Other people cannot choose to marry them, neither can they choose to marry someone else. It's all under my control. I would say no. Alright, so that is important. So without taking over the wives, there can be challenges to the throne. That is the problem. Alright, so this was done with that. But David, there was no record that David took them as his own wives. It's just like it's literally like taking over properties. If you don't take over these properties, something can happen to these properties that can now affect your position. That's all. Alright, so understanding the principles, then we know this is the case. Alright, so yes, he's not taking over, he's not taking over with them, to sleep with them, to produce children with them, and so on. So in those days, these are things that are like that. But because the children of Israel, they understand this is about challenge to the throne. And our Jehovah God expects us not to commit this kind of terrible polygamy and so on. I do not sleep with them. Okay? If they choose to, then they have sinned against God. Alright? So understand that is the technical part of taking over kingship. Alright? So don't say, oh, then you see proof can marry many wives. Pastors also marry many wives. Let's quote him. Now, then it leads to another question. All right. So, any questions about this? Understand it's property management. That's all. Nothing sexual. Nothing about marriage and all that. And controlling the throne, the power of the throne. What do we have here? Top 5 reasons why church dropouts. What church dropouts say? Why they stop attending church? Now, please remember 66% of, well, I take the American view, they are the most readily available results. They stop attending church at least a year after turning 18. So from